Oi you, it's time for another episode of Dorothy and the Dealer. Let's tune into the conversation.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of Dorothy and the Dealer.
Me and Adele O'Connor. Adele O'Connor was my first love, right? She was my first girlfriend.
I know.
And I just hooked up with her again online after like 23, 4 years, about 2 years ago.
Yes.
But on the radio the other day...
I'm going to tag her in this now.
On the radio the other day, I heard our love song.
Oh, tell me. This is your song for the day.
Yeah, remember, it was like, solid as a rock. Ooh, that's what this love is. That's what we got. That was it. It was a fucking song.
Thank you for that rendition.
Yeah. It was really good. I really felt, oh my God, that takes me back.
It does,
to the Morris Minor that I had in my shed. And Adele used to come around and we used to snog each other in the back of the Morris Minor. That was in my shed.
There you go.
That'll tell you how old I am.
Yes, it does, actually.
Morris Minor. That was my first car.
Ancient.
That was my first car.
Was it?
I was with my mum the other day and she my dad had gone, "You're 45 now, son." And my mum looked at me and went, "Jesus Christ, son, are you 45? And I'm like, "Jesus Christ, Mum, have you got Alzheimer's?" We laughed. It's an Irish thing.
It's an Irish thing.
No. I said, "Yes, Mum, I'm 45. She goes, "Oh my God, you look so young." I said, "You're my biggest fan, Mum."
She is.
She is my biggest fan.
So, what are we talking about today?
Well, I think we're talking about putting yourself out there.
Putting yourself out there. Yeah.
We were talking about, you were saying you loved how Tyler had done
Well, I think that it's important that people can be all of themselves when they're presenting themselves to a their audience, their clients, their friends, whoever, and there's times where you want to build yourself up, not want to, but you've achieved certain things, and it's important to be able to acknowledge what you've achieved, and I know some people feel like when they're sharing what they've achieved and when they're sharing who they are and what they've learnt and what they've achieved. I've said that twice because I can't think of anything else to say. That's
really?
But when they're sharing that, they feel embarrassed to do so because it feels like they're pumping themselves up.
Yeah.
But the way I see it is that you're sharing a part of who you are, and that's okay, right? Yeah. So a lot of people, why are you looking at me?
Because I'm not sure of what your point is.
My point is that when you... We just discussed it before.
No, I'm not sure of what your point...
My point is that people feel afraid to share their successes, to share who they are. Do
you think they're afraid to share their successes?
Yes, sometimes they are. Yes.
What about their failures?
Both.
Right.
Both. And we're going to come to that. We're getting to that.
Okay.
But I feel like if their business is transforming health, we work with a lot of MLM companies, right?
Yeah.
And they are in the business of transforming health or transforming people's lives in various ways, right?
Yeah.
And if they've had a success with that, or if they've achieved something in their own lives, right?
Yeah.
I know that it can be difficult to share that because what happens is that they feel like they're pumping themselves up, they're making themselves look better than they are, or what have you, right? So I feel like it's important that as people are putting themselves out there, that when they're sharing that information, that they're humble with it, right?
Yeah.
That they're able to acknowledge that, yes, I've done this, like we did yesterday. We sat in the car yesterday on the way back to the office and we sat down and we thought about what we were grateful for. And we were talking about stuff that people wouldn't...
Yeah.
Like it's not the norm. Do you know what I mean? Like we're talking and we're really grateful for some of those things.
Yeah.
But when we're grateful for them, when they come and when we present them to our clients, it doesn't sound like I'm just blowing smoke up my own ass, if that makes sense. Like we're talking about it as if we're sharing the reality of the benefits of us having achieved what we've achieved. Yes.
So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, so people invest in authenticity, would you agree?
Yeah.
Because I think that when we're authentic, excuse me, and when we're ourselves, I think people can relate and connect, and connection's very important.
100%.
Where if we're just talking about how awesome things are and how wicked I am and how brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, people can smell that.
They smell it from a mile away.
It's phony.
Yes, absolutely.
It's phony BS.
Yes,
you know
absolutely.
what I mean? And I think that, one of the really common threads amongst most of the high-end MLMers that we work with, and we work with a lot of them, and it's the thing that we encourage them to do the most when we're coaching them on building their businesses and building their data and their client base, is for them to be themselves.
Absolutely.
And that means every single part of yourself.
All parts of yourself.
Because people, you got to talk about the things that are shit that are happening, because people relate to that, but you got to talk about how you got out of it.
Yeah.
And and how you dealt with it and what it gave you and what it taught you and how that enabled you, because that's how you reach your people. Mm-hmm. People, like a lot of our MLMers will niche themselves in one specific area, which is really wise. They will blog on that area, and then they attach their MLM, their product from their MLM business to their the common business title now is online business. I have an online business. But what you're doing is you're specializing and niching in one area, and you're being authentic in that area. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then attaching your business to that. But it's the authenticity in that area. The people who are most authentic in that area are the ones that have the biggest following.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, tell me one that's not authentic in that area. And the ones that are not authentic in that area, they hit a glass ceiling and they're not able to get past it.
Yes, and the authenticity is both ways. So I'll come to the other way in a minute, but in both ways, in terms of building yourself up and in terms of sharing the low parts as well.
Yeah.
So I often see some of the people who are working their way to get up the levels, right?
Yeah.
They're saying things like we said earlier. They're saying things to help build themselves up, but you're not feeling it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Or they're saying things, that my life was like this, or I've had shit times as well, but you're not feeling it. You're feeling like they're saying it for the purpose of saying it and to get a reaction from people.
Yeah.
What resonates with me and what resonates with most people is when you can really feel the authenticity of what, and for me, that's about sharing what's actually going on. And that works both ways. So it works in being able to share with people where things aren't going so well, right? And when you're feeling down, you're in a health industry, but you're not always going to be healthy because not everybody can do that. We're in the PD industry, but we're not always feeling inspired.
Oh, fuck.
We have our moments where we're not inspired and we're not. And it's like I think that part of us, or part of people who present a face to the world, they feel like they've got to be that way all the time. I know that's true for me. Definitely as a result of the South America thing and me having to not be there, and there's been other things that have happened in the recent few weeks that I know for me that I haven't been feeling as inspired as I could be feeling. Now, the truth about it is that I know that there are ways that I can improve that and I can turn that around. But sometimes just because I know that there are ways you can do it doesn't mean that I don't feel those things, Somebody was asking us in the seminar that we had just recently about, did we fight, And I'm like, we fight all the time, but it doesn't mean that we don't love each other.
It's not black and white fighting.
Black and white.
It's like, it's not this is the end of it, I'm leaving you, whatever,
Yeah.
It's none of that primitive stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we all go through primitive stages.
As well,
I know I was, at least once this year, I was very primitive at you. And I knew afterwards, I went, where did I just go there? Holy shit, And then you keep the space for me to be able to go, I get you needed to just blow off there because you had a lot of stuff going on in the background. Yeah. But everybody has stuff going on in the background, and it's important to be able to talk about what you've learned from that stuff, and it has to be genuine.
Oh, absolutely.
It has to be authentic. It has to be, when you're communicating with your people, if you're saying, hey, getting into an MLM company is going to be all plus, and you're going to be able to do this, that, and
people smell that. They smell that. That's
what are you
real.
I'll tell you, reality of an MLM company is the first year is easily 10 to 14 hours, at least 5 days a week. Yeah. Easily 10 to 14 hours.
Well, if you want to get ahead.
If you want to get ahead.
Yeah.
Because there's a tipping point.
Yeah.
I was just talking to one of the girls yesterday who's just on LIG, who's in an MLM company. Yeah. And I said, And I was giving her some comparisons of people within the organisation, within her organisation. And I said, you have to understand that these guys went hell for leather for the first year. But there's a tipping point where it starts, where the people underneath you start to do what you're doing. And then at that point, you can start to ease off. But it doesn't mean that you have less to do. You just become more accountable.
Absolutely.
At that point of tipping point, you have to delegate better. You have to be, you have to build your organisation. You have to let go of the low priority bullshit, and you take a staff member on to handle that, and then you make sure that you're only doing the things that free up your time to do what you love,
Absolutely.
but also that pay you. That bring in revenue so that you can continue to build your business.
Absolutely, yeah.
But we've worked in this industry, especially coaching MLM businesses for 10, 15 years. And I remember the guys going around just building their, where they were turning up the houses and grouping people together and pitching the product. And man, they put in serious hours, but they earned serious money.
Yeah, but it's about the point that you were making there is that when you're encouraging other people in, you've got to be real with them.
Because
right?
if I turn up and I'm like, yeah, man, and
really
within a year you're going to be driving a Lambo, and within a year you're going to be earning $2.5 million. And look at this person over here. They did it within 2 years. How quickly did you get there, Mike? Oh, I got there within 2 years, which is just nonsense. Yeah. Mike is half dead. It's just not true. It's just not reality.
Yeah. But I know that I know for me, I can't speak for you, but I know it was also, I think, a little bit true for you, that when as soon as you start putting yourself out there, you feel like you've got to show everybody only the plus, right? Yeah. And I know that it was, I've always wanted to not do that. Like, I've always wanted to feel like I'm not just doing that, because then people can't relate. And I actually remember speaking to Jack Canfield about it in 2012. We're on the ship, and I remember speaking to him and saying, I can't remember the question I asked him, but feeling like I was a little bit stuck. And he said, well, that's okay. Your stuckness helps other people to see that just because you're stuck, it doesn't mean that you're not moving forward, if that makes sense. Sounds like a contradiction. Yeah. But yes, you still struggle with your weight, but you're still doing what you love. Yeah. So you can't use that. Don't use that as your excuse. Use that as your way to help connect with people. Use that as your way to help share with people your experiences, and then, because if you're someone who's in the health industry and you keep saying that, yes, you're perfect and you never ever mess up with your food, well, then people can't live up to that.
Yeah, because
so
it's unrealistic.
Feel that they can relate.
Yeah.
So what I think I'm saying, or I'd like the message to get across, is that when you're authentic, people can relate to you. And if you look at anybody who's doing well on social media, you look at anybody who's doing well.
A great one is Will Smith.
Well, I was just thinking about him as I was saying that, but not just Will Smith. People like Constance Hall and other people like that. They're people who, it's not about. It's all about how real they are. Yeah. It's all about how authentic they are. They're not doing it to get likes. They're doing it because that's them. Yeah. And when it's them, like Will Smith and Jada just had a Red Table Talk where they talked about their relationship, just real stuff. And people engage in that because it's real. Do you know what I mean? And people engage with these social media entities and these people in businesses who they can connect with because they're being authentic. And authenticity is the plus and the minus. It's all of it. It's not just this image of perfection, because that, to me, that's unrealistic and necessary.
And I think we're always saying, you cannot impose a singularity of happiness onto a humanity that commands duality. You just can't do that. Love is the synthesis of complementary opposites. People love you for the whole of who you are, for your wholesomeness, not just a half of someness. Does that make sense? They don't love you when you're just being half a human, because they know you're not real. You're not actually teaching me how to deal with an issue if you're just being all one-sided.
Yes, so you're liked for your liked parts, you're disliked for your disliked parts, but you're loved for your wholesomeness. And I think that's what's important. I think that if you want to be in that space and you want to share who you are, be okay to share the parts that people are going to like.
I have to say that. I mean, sometimes it's you know, it's easier said than done.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
You know, it's easier said than done. And I think that when I first started talking about my story, which eventually I realized, that my story was my story, and it really, as much as I had huge amounts of shame around what had gone on and who I was and where I was, until somebody sat me down one day and said, buddy, it's just a fucking story.
Exactly.
It's just, and there's so many other stories too, Mitch, that are extraordinary stories, and but talk about your story, but talk about the triumph that came out of it. Out of every tragedy, there's triumph. And
Did you say tragedy?
Tragedy.
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 DJ's gone.
Tragedy. I think there's only one of those guys left. Anyway, so from every tragedy comes triumph, right? But if you just go around talking about the triumph, people will fucking. You can't just talk about the triumph because they need to know where the tragedy was.
Absolutely.
And you can't just talk about the tragedy because it's dull and boring. And
well, it needs to have an outcome.
And
shows people.
And that's really the hero's journey.
Yes.
So, but I think it's an important message that don't be ashamed of any part of who you are. And if you are,
that's a process.
Yeah, of course, and a process of stopping and sitting down and thinking, okay, if I was to sit with my child who I was when I was 7 years old, and I'm an adult now and I've gone through all this stuff, what would I say to them? What would I tell them I've learned out of this stuff? What compassion and empathy and love and understanding, what would the message I would give to them be about moving forward in life? And that should be a great way for you to determine the message that you have to give based on where you are in your life today. Think about it in terms of, okay, if I was going to advise my inner self, my young child, based on what I've learned, what would I say? What would I tell them? What lessons would I impart? And that's what you should be sharing with your people.
Yeah.
Because everybody, as much as we're all adults, we're all just kids.
Absolutely.
We're just kids. When we work with people in relationships, and the advice we give are logistics right at the beginning. The people that are walking into this room are just 7-year-old kids. They just happen to be inside an adult's body, and they just want to get it. They just want to get it. So to get your people to get it, you've got to show that you've got it, you've learned, you've got some stuff to give.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's a good message. Cool.
Yes. That's how you used to fight when we went.
It is, yeah.
Like,
That's how I fought in school.
Is it?
Yeah, it was.
Yes, I had to teach you how to fight like a brother.
Like a brother.
Like a brother.
Like a brother. He's my brother.
I had a sister.
That's a sister.
You watch it with your kids as they grow up now.
What?
You'll see them fighting and it'll be different.
Oh, no, I've taught Lexi how to fight.
Do you?
Oh, yeah, I've taught a lot of how to fight.
There you go.
Teaching Ollie how to fight.
Okay.
Ollie is like from, Kato from the Pink Panther. He just leaps out of it. Kato, not now, Kato, get back. You know the Pink Panther? You know who Kato was? You're that old.
The
young people are out there
just
going,
a little bit younger
Pink
than
Panther, Kato?
Anyway, we're finished.